On Cape Cod, our picturesque shores hide a gripping crisis, addiction, particularly to opioids and alcohol and others. It has cast a long shadow over our region. But fortunately, there are many resources for those in recovery, but there is one that I want to talk about today. It focuses on the peer-to-peer connection. Why is that important? And why should you care? That's today's takeaway. Hello again, Cape Cod. I'm Greg Anderson. You have heard the buzzwords. Fentanyl is killing people in record numbers. Alcohol has destroyed families and lives for decades. Addiction is no joke, and recovery can be a lonely journey for anyone. But there is hope, and that's what we're going to talk about today. In fact, did you know that peer-to-peer support programs have proven to play a remarkable role in recovery? And did you know that here on the Cape, there is an organization that does just that? It provides peer-to-peer support programs and resources for those in recovery. And now they're offering a peer-facilitated support group for veterans in recovery. That's what we're going to talk about. What does it look like? Let's talk to Shelby Silverson and Larry Longstaff from Peer Recovery Center of Cape Cod. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
All right, so we've got a lot to talk about, and
Yes.
and I'm really happy that you're here. But there are a couple things that just kind of stand out as there's such a need for support services for people with recovery, and then when you add in the veterans piece, it just takes on a whole new level. Yeah. But let's start at the beginning. Tell me about Peer Recovery Center of Cape Cod in Hyannis. What do you do?
So I'm the program director. I've been with the PIER for almost 6 years now. The PIER is a wonderful hidden gem. It's all of the members, people come in, they're in recovery, seeking recovery. We do multiple pathways. We don't believe that there's necessarily one way to recover. It's finding their journey. So that's why a lot of our groups during the day are spiritual, morning motivation, relapse prevention, any of those kind of components.
Yeah. How long have you been around?
I am originally from the Midwest.
Yeah.
So I moved here in 2011.
Okay.
And I was actually on the streets of Hyannis when I first moved here.
No kidding.
Yes.
So talk about peer to peer. I mean, you've been there.
Yeah, I wish that this place would have been there when I had just moved.
So who are your clients? Do you call them clients or?
We like to refer to them as members.
Members,
Yep.
okay. So who are your members? Who comes through?
Honestly, a lot of people. We've seen some really amazing people come through. It all just depends. So there's people in recovery, there's people seeking, or at that line of, I'm not sure what I'm doing, what I want to do. So what we do is try to guide.
Yeah.
And that's where the recovery coaching piece comes into play as well. All my staff is recovery coach trained.
Yeah.
And if not, they will be.
Wow.
So,
you were on the streets of Hyannis.
yes.
How did you go from there to here, if you don't mind me asking?
From the streets to where I am
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Honestly, the first go round, it took me a little bit. I had no insurance here or anything like that. I was lucky enough to get into a place called the Crisis Center. And then I was able to, from there, go back home. I had a home. I just couldn't live there at the time.
Yeah.
Great family. And then I went to meetings, but I didn't do things the right way. A person, 2003, I got clean from a substance that was not normally found here in the Northeast region. So I got clean from that in 2003.
Wow, good for you. When you talk about these services, they are free to anyone. Who funds you? How does that work?
So we're out of the BSAS, which is the Bureau of Substance Addiction Services.
Okay.
Sometimes they change the lingo a little
Yeah,
bit.
sure.
So we are funded through them.
Okay.
And
they are, what is that group? Is it a federally funded?
So yeah, it's like a state kind
state,
of,
okay.
but it's wide too. So,
Okay.
and then we have a host agency, which is called Gandhara.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, so Gandhara, and I did some research, and I know I'm interested in learning about them, but their mission is to promote the well-being of culturally diverse populations through innovative and culturally competent behavioral health services. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, what a mission. Tell me about them and how do they work with you here on the Cape?
So it's a really great organization as far as what, in general with what they do. Very diverse. They have all kinds of different things through Springfield. That we have a sister center here in Falmouth that just opened. And we also have a sister center, Plymouth, who's funded. So there's a total of 5 peer-led centers.
Is that unique?
Actually 6.
6 of them. Is peer-led recovery centers unique?
They were, and
Yeah.
now they've blown up.
Okay.
Because they are finding that the peer-to-peer process,
Yeah.
peer participatory process is what they call it,
Yeah.
is the way, it's just like 2 people sitting and having a conversation like right now that we're doing.
Yeah.
And finding out about his journey, my journey, yours, or just anybody's.
Yeah.
Not all 12 steps are for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I was blessed to I was able to go through the 12 steps.
Yeah.
But now today in my recovery, it's not my pathway.
Why?
Because I think I've evolved in different things, and there's
Okay.
so many things for recovery that are not just the typical
The 12 steps.
12 steps.
Got it. What type of addictions are you facing?
Well, obviously we have the one, it's pretty much, it's fentanyl.
Yeah.
Right now on the streets, it's straight fentanyl. People are thinking they're getting their heroin or anything to that extent, and it's not.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, just over the last couple weeks, we had, I think there was like 10 people. We're right on Main Street in Hyannis.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's a give and take. The unhoused population right now is probably the highest since I've seen it in our center.
Really?
Like not in our center, but like
But people
outside,
that are
walking by or
Yeah.
out into that aspect, which winds up being a little bit of where people tend to pick up. They're at their worst.
So I'm envisioning in my mind somebody who may not have a home, someone that is really struggling with hardcore drugs, opioids, and of course the fentanyl issue, but cocaine, but what about the guy who, middle income, kids and wife or husband at home, and they are a drunk? Mm-hmm. Are your services kind of inclusive of somebody who may not necessarily be so, you know what I'm trying to say?
Everybody matters.
Yeah,
So no matter
okay.
where anybody comes from, like we have all different.
All different incomes and
It doesn't matter
backgrounds
because
and-
at the end of the day, we are there for a reason.
Yeah.
And it's to help people find that reason and give them that support as far as that goes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's no stigma either which way.
Yeah.
This affects rich, poor, millionaire, billionaire, you name it.
Yeah.
This disease, and is same with traumas or anything that has to do with it, but sometimes we wind up picking up because we have stuff that we don't know how to cope with or deal with.
In my conversations with Larry before this interview, I was really taken by this. You know, you look at addiction and you look at recovery, and you think, okay, alcohol, recovery. Not even inclusive of the veteran piece, which we'll talk about in a bit, but childhood trauma and alcoholism. You know, life issues that are happening and alcohol. It's not a simple profile of a person who is an alcoholic or addicted to opioids, or you know, it's kind of the big picture. So, Larry, you are a peer coach to people, correct?
Correct.
Tell me what that is. What is it that you do in that capacity?
In the capacity of a recovery coach, we try to meet people where they are in their recovery journey, beginning it, contemplating it, or taking a few steps into it.
Yeah.
We get them there, and the best thing we can do is help them to develop a wellness plan. And that would entail, okay, you're here now, how do you want to get out of here? How can we help you get out of this spot?
Yeah.
And where do you want to be next year?
Yeah.
And what are the steps involved to getting there? And then our job is to help them remove the roadblocks. Okay?
And
if I'm living on the street now,
yeah,
the first thing I want to recover from is living on the street. So how do I do that?
yeah,
All right? So we can point them to specific services in the area that can help them get off the street. Okay, now I'm not out in the rain. What can I do next? All right,
Yeah.
and we can point them to specific services to do that. We're not counselors, we're not therapists. We have no medical training. That's not where we are at all.
Yeah.
We just help them move along the journey at the pace that they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
To get them into a recovery that they can sustain.
Yeah.
So
It's
I would.
lived.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's lived recovery. Like ours is lived experience.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned so much for myself in the short amount, like not short, but the time that I've been
Sure. Yeah.
with Gondara and the Peer Recovery Center, I've learned so many things. I have no degree.
Yeah. Wow.
And to what I know today versus what I knew back then. And that's where the peer-to-peer comes in, is
Yeah.
because we're all equal.
And that, so the person that's coming in is struggling perhaps with a little bit of a stigma issue. You know, they've got to ask for help. They have to, no one is forced upon you.
Right.
So they want to come in and get help. What does that look like? Is that am I coming to see Larry every week? Is it every day? Is it phone call, in person? What does that look like?
A lot of times the entry to our place, the first visits, they're just coming because they heard they can get a cup of coffee. All right? They still have the stigma. They're not sure of what they're doing or how to broach the subject with anybody. So they just come in for a cup of coffee to sit down and relax for a couple of minutes. And they can see what's going on. And then one of our coaches can approach them and just say, how are you doing? You know, what is it that we may be able to do to help you today? Are you interested in help? All right? And then that opens the door, and that tells them that if there is stigma out there, once you come through that door, there isn't. So
Yeah.
it helps them to relax and be much more accepting to anything we may be able to offer.
Talk about a safe space.
Well, and it is, like, to add to what he's saying is, you know, it's listening. A lot of people don't sit and listen. So we just try to, by asking the right questions and digging a little bit deeper, we're able to learn a lot more. And then that's what helps us to say, okay, this person is a fit for here.
Yeah.
Let's get this person here. If not, this person's completely all for recovery or almost there. If not, we're able to find the resources where to fit these people.
Yeah. And that fits the
Or
mission.
ourselves, or, you know, the peers.
You know, even Gondara's part of its mission is really emphasizing partnerships and connecting collaboratively resources to help people. In your materials, you talked, and you referenced earlier, Shelby, a little bit of some of the programs, morning motivation, relapse prevention, spirituality. You have all of these separate things. There were There were really three that kind of jumped out at me, and I want you to explain them. What is morning motivation?
So that we have at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we read from a gentleman who writes amazing, I don't even know if I can say it, Ralph Marston. And the members, the peers, will talk about it and how that relates to them, how they feel about that, or what line they picked out. And I swear that man is right every time.
Wow.
Literally.
So people show up just as what it is. It's connecting, it's learning something, it's looking inside, and using that as a kickstart to the day.
Yes. And it's huge.
When you say huge,
Marston's overarching theme is you are worth it. And everything else he writes, you can tie back into that statement.
yeah,
You are worth it. This is how you can go forward with your day. This is what you can do to support yourself.
yeah,
And it's different every day. I don't know how he writes these things.
yeah. You know, you are worth it, you are enough. You know, those
Exactly
are
what he
words.
says.
Yeah, interesting.
And then
Tell
it has
me-
some challenges in there too.
Okay.
He has some challenging words, like, you know, some bigger things where you really have to dissect, and then you're like, you have this aha moment. And I watch others as well have these, wow, I really had to think about that one.
That's where the conversation explodes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's not just the heading of the reading, it's the bullet points underneath it. It's like, yeah, this makes sense to me. This one doesn't, but oh my
Yeah.
God, look at this one.
yeah. Relapse prevention. I pretty much know what that would be, but tell me, what is it in your eyes?
So for us, I think it's just becoming aware of what our triggers are and how can we avoid those? How can we help other people find what may be hanging out with the wrong people or different things? We're learning as we go, obviously, as everything evolves and more research is done, the more educated we become
Yeah.
on how, so they don't have that relapse. Like, okay, let's get you a resume, let's do, you know, job searching, those kind of things, because that's all prevention as well.
Yeah,
And getting them introduced to back into socializing. How do you socialize when you've drank and used for so many years?
yeah,
How do you, you know, can you go into a bar? You're told not to. How can you still feel a part of a community
Yeah.
or hang with you, some of your, you know, friends or your family?
Yeah.
It's helping set up a little bit of the prevention, but also set up for success.
and that's the plan, the wellness plan that you were talking about, Larry.
Yeah, it's part of it. One of the things that we didn't mention are, I'm just going to throw them under the category of distraction programs. Okay? During the course of the day, we'll have arts and crafts. All right? Or, you know, tie-dye shirts. We'll paint seashells, that kind of thing. And it's not as much the activity, but the social interaction that can happen around it. Okay, you're distracted from whatever problems you have because you're focused on this activity, and you're goofing with the people that are there doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like, you're so clumsy. Now wait a minute, but it, you know, everybody
Right.
gets together, and it breaks down the
Walls.
walls that people build around themselves.
Interesting.
It's really beautiful to see. Like, I'll never forget, I'll just tell you this real quick. I'll never forget, it was during the pandemic, and we were just kind of slowly opening up. And I was watching 3 different people, 3 different walks of life. And it was simple as them taking a pot for flowers, and they were dumping them out and cleaning them so we could redo them. And I'm looking at them, and they're laughing, and they're connecting.
yeah,
That right there is my why.
yeah,
That is my why. And like Larry was saying, it's the times where people who would never probably mix have come together and are laughing and enjoying and sometimes crying.
yeah. Wow. What's your why, Larry?
Why did I get started in
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
God, it was suggested about a year ago. People that I knew just said, "You'd be good at this. You know, you'd be a good recovery coach." And my response was, Yeah, great, what the hell's that? You know, I had no clue.
Yeah.
And then I started looking into it, and I started thinking about interactions that I've had with people in recovery.
Yeah.
Not just my recovery, but others in recovery.
Yeah.
And I realized that I got a lot out of that. So my reason for getting in was in quite a large part selfish, because I enjoyed it. I got a reward out of it. And to see somebody progressing or understanding what I was saying, that's, you know, that's huge. And it gives myself, a great sense of value. I've got something that can help other people. And that's, you know, that's wonderful.
Well, you think of the peer-to-peer piece. You know, if you are coaching me, I'm benefiting because I'm in my journey and I'm struggling, and thank you for helping me. But you're getting something out of it because you're doing something good. You're helping.
It reinforces everything that I
Yeah.
do and think.
Yeah. So you guys have talked. You guys, meaning PIER, has been talking about veterans, and it's something that you've long been looking at, and certainly we have veterans on Cape Cod. We have veterans everywhere. But in September, you're starting up a meeting every Friday evening, 1800 hours, 6 o'clock, in the evening. A group that is specifically for veterans in recovery.
Yes.
Larry, you're going to be the facilitator of this.
I'll be one of the facilitators.
One of the
yeah.
facilitators. Why is this so important to you? Why now, and why veterans?
A few months ago, I was just sitting at my desk doing what I do at PIER, and a veteran came in, and he had separated from the Marines in the early 90s, I think. And I just asked him how he was doing, and he started complaining about the VA and things that he wasn't getting that he deserved. You know, I can't get housing, and the Camp Lejeune problem, and I think I got thyroid problems and all of this stuff. And it's like, I said, well, have you gone to the VA or the Resource Center? Yeah, but nobody's giving me any help. I said, okay, well, let me see what I can do. I have no idea. So I went down to the Veterans Resource Center, and I started asking them, and they wanted to know who this gentleman was, and I told them, and I said, oh yeah, we know all about him. So we had a conversation, but in the middle of that conversation, I said, well, wouldn't it be a good idea to get veterans with problems together? At that point, it was just let them get together in a room and have a bitch session.
Yeah.
You know, just complain about whatever you want, but you're talking to the other guys.
Yeah.
And they were supportive of that, and they asked for more information about our center. So a couple weeks later, I got some brochures from the center, brought it down there, and spoke to Barbara Ann Foley, who was the director. And she was over the top enthused about the idea. And I was taken aback, because she said, there is nothing like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she said, give
Which
me
is
some
surprising
information.
to me.
Yeah, very surprising.
Yeah.
She said, give me some more information about your center, and we'll put together a flyer. So I went back and talked to Shelby, and Shelby put together this amazing flyer, and I brought it back down to them at the Resource Center. They were absolutely thrilled, and they said, okay, well, we're going to distribute it. So they took it to Big Nick's Ride for the Fallen.
Yeah.
1,700 motorcycles this year.
Yeah.
But they distributed them there at the end, the closing ceremony. 2 days later, they went to the Harbor Hawks Veterans Appreciation Game, and again, they're throwing out the flyers.
Yeah.
And then they started putting flyers in with all of the bags of food they give out in their food pantry.
Wow.
So that's
So this is
how
a major outreach effort.
It is, and I went to the Veterans Empowerment Center in Sandwich. They were thrilled about the idea too.
Yeah. You are not a veteran.
I am not.
I thought that you were.
I'm not.
But you have a significant pull towards your passion for supporting veterans. What is that?
When I was 10 months old, my father got orders to go to Korea with this helicopter group. 4 months later, he was killed. So I've spent my whole life being a victim of that. Let's put it that way. You know, the world owed me because it was taken away from me. And then a couple years ago, the whole thing turned around, and I realized that I didn't lose anything. He did. And, you know, he didn't get to see his children grow up, didn't get to hold his grandchildren, and all of those things. That's what he gave up. I didn't give up anything because I didn't have to begin with, but he had the children. So then it dawned on me that when you sign on the line and you strap on the uniform, that's the risk you're taking. It may not be foremost in your thought process. People enlist for a variety of reasons. You know, there's no place to work, or this is what my family did, or I want to go kill some bad guys. I mean, there are a multitude of reasons for going in.
Yeah.
But realizing that this is what you could be giving up, it's not foremost in your mind. But I realized that that's the risk they're taking. And for that, we owe them a debt. This is an effort to help pay some of that debt, that they're not getting the support they need from, you know, where they would expect to get it.
The journeys that addicts are dealing with are similar. You know, they're very different, but they're similar. But then you layer over that veterans piece. So now you have people that you're going to be speaking with. I mean, you already have this gentleman you were just referring to, who have a very complex situation that they're dealing with. They're dealing with recovery, and they're also dealing with the fact that they were in service, in service, and whatever those issues are. How do you envision these Friday night meetings? What does that look like? Tell me what that's going to be like.
Can I take that for a second?
I think what we'd like to do is perhaps start off the same way as we start the morning motivation meetings, with, you know, a reading, an idea, a topic, and then go around the room and have them discuss it. And the idea is they have to break down the walls that they've built up, feeling like they are alone in this because they've been forgotten by the VA. You know, they took off their uniform and they got dumped at a bus station. You know, now what happens? And for the past few years, everything they needed has been taken care of. Now it's not. And their core reasons for addiction may have started before the service. It may be a result of something in the service, something they've seen, experienced. So, you know, we're just trying to ease that problem. Right now, 22 veterans commit suicide a day. That is twice the national average. And the only thing that can be counted harshly are the ones that pull the trigger, okay?
Right.
The ones that die from alcoholism brought on by whatever experience triggered it,
They're not
or drug
documented.
abuse. There's no way to tabulate that,
Yeah.
right? Because the suicide by alcohol, we'll call it,
Right.
could take years to happen.
Yeah.
But because of the things they cannot face, they are abusing just to ease the pain.
Yeah.
And you can't, you know, it's impossible to tabulate that because you know.
Well, and I think that they also, I mean, I think it's the alone factor. Nobody understands, just even very similar to people with substance use, right? Is we feel like nobody knows what we're feeling and nobody understands and how we get lost in that. But there is people that understand, may not fully, but there's people that can relate and understand parts of it, right? And that's why the
interesting.
peer
Yeah.
to peer is so important, is
Yeah.
because him and I found things in common.
Yeah.
You know, as far as
And
what
Larry
we're
is
doing.
what, 92 years old? You're in your 90s, and
Watch it.
you're in your 20s. So I mean, I'm
Thank you.
Yeah, I can see this. So, but you're right. Relatability,
Yeah.
connectedness. So you could come into that. One could come to your group on the Fridays that are starting up in September and not say a word,
Right.
but just be present and feel that energy in the room, or could come in and really, I need to talk.
Yeah, I mean, somebody can be sitting in the room and, as you say, not say anything.
Yeah.
Just sit there and listen. And all of a sudden, that's me.
Yeah,
He just told my story.
yeah,
Right? Then the connection builds, and then the connection grows between everybody in the room.
and this is a kind of akin to AA meetings.
So that's kind of where it's, yes, like AA, NA, most of our groups are still, all groups are ran, right? It's just, that's the 12 steps. But
Yeah.
the thing with these kind of what we're doing is running along the lines of that.
Yeah.
But it not be AA, it's not NA,
Yeah.
it's their meeting.
And
So
it's not 12 steps.
It's not,
Sorry
yeah,
to
it's
interrupt.
it-
Yeah, there are no steps involved.
And it's
No.
just for veterans.
Right. What the idea was is we want it for people to come in who have substance misuse, right, and or need, I guess, right,
Yeah.
and that's where, like he said, it's just starting like the Ralph Marston. We've spoken on the Ralph Marston. All of a sudden, you're like, oh my gosh, I can relate to this, and the next
Yeah.
thing you know, it goes, and then we want them to have a safe space for them to talk. We're not, clinical. We're not there as a trauma informed or
Right.
any. Do I know? Does Larry? Do we know how to kind of de-escalate or move things? Yes,
Right.
but that's not what our main purpose is. So
We
it's
want to offer a space where they can sit down and have the same conversation we're having,
yeah.
okay? Without it being facilitated or directed by Greg Anderson or
Right.
me.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I'm going to start the ball rolling. Go for it, guys.
Yeah.
It's
How does age in generations, we're coming back to Larry's age again. How does age fold into this? Meaning if you have someone in their 50s that was in Gulf War and you have someone that is much older that was in Vietnam, our journeys are somewhat similar, and clearly you have the addiction piece, but does that become an issue? Is it an issue? Is this?
So I think everybody's going to all be able to be the same in aspects. Now the biggest part is 18 and older,
Yeah.
but I think that no matter the age, whether it be somebody who's younger or somebody who's older.
Yeah.
I think Larry and I discussed this too. I do believe that back further in NOM and things like that, now they've got a little bit more control. There's more knowledge of the, what can happen.
Right.
As we educate ourselves.
Yeah.
But I think that we have all, no matter the age, so much to learn from one another and to give.
If it's a military-based trauma, the similarities are going to be the same. Whether you've got sand in your boots or your boots are full from a rice paddy, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's the same terror, horror, or whatever it is if it's military-based.
Yeah.
Okay, but it can be prior to that.
Right. So this is every Friday, starting in September, 1,800 hours.
September 13th.
September
We're starting
13th.
it on Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. By the way, that's my wedding anniversary.
See?
Yeah. Is it?
What does that tell
Oh,
you?
is it?
Yeah,
That's a typical man.
Okay, so you're located at 209 Main Street.
In the rear.
You go in the rear
Yep.
entrance. Do I need to register?
No.
Just walk in.
Just show
walk
up.
Just show up. Will I feel pressure that I got to be there every week? Am I going to have that type of, can I come in
No.
and feel it out and then maybe come back next week? Or,
Absolutely.
Our hope, a real hope, is that you come in the first week and you find something valuable, all right? Then you are more inclined to come back. But just as important, we want you to tell somebody else that you found this valuable,
yeah,
because we want this to be able to grow organically, just by word of mouth, and see where we can go.
I want them.
And the ultimate goal is, if through this whole effort we can keep 1 or 2 vets from killing themselves through substance use, then it's all worth it.
Yeah.
And I think real quick, it was like Larry was saying is really, you were talking about the meeting, is them to have that space where they can talk about those things, right?
Yeah.
Like what happened in the war, what happened, what did they see, AA, NA, 12-step fellowships, you can't really talk about that. You know, I want these people to know that they are not left behind.
Right.
And there's maybe 3 people or 4 that first come that know that they're not left behind because there's 4 people sitting in that room.
Yeah.
One of the greatest feelings you can have is to go up to a Vietnam vet and say, welcome home. And the look on their face.
Wow.
Okay, because they didn't get that. Right? And I think the stigma that they went through and still go through is much less than the people coming back from the Gulf Wars.
Yeah.
But it still exists.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what you guys are doing is terrific, and like I said at the outset, I am dumbfounded that this isn't something that you could find almost in any community everywhere. We do not treat our veterans the way they deserve in general.
Right.
This is a wonderful program. I think that whole relatability, the fellowship piece, the ease, it's free of charge, it's peers. There's so much in there. Those are my takeaways from this. So once again, it's starting September 13th, Friday nights, 209 Main Street. Come in the rear on Main Street. No registration required. Thank you both for being here. Shelby Silverson, sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
And Larry Longstaff from PIER Recovery Center of Cape Cod in Hyannis. I'm so glad you guys were here. Hopefully, this message can really get out there, and you can grow this. If you or someone you know is facing addiction and in recovery and a veteran or not, this is a place that you want to reach out to. This has been a very interesting conversation for me. I hope it has been for you as well. Please reach out to them. You can get them at 508-827-6150. I'm Greg Anderson, and I'll see you soon.